I had also lost earlier that year my grandmother and then my grandfather, and I was very close to both of them because I was raised with them and I was very close to them. And up until that point, losing them was the most traumatic experience I had gone through in that way as far as loss goes, right? And then losing my husband after that, after those two, for me, did me in, emotionally speaking. And I remember feeling like well, I had a different outlook on life altogether. And so I'm sharing this because if you don't know me, you don't know, you can never tell with anybody. When you look at somebody, they don't come with a sign that says, I've been through XYZ, I've done this or that, I've experienced this or that or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So, but experiencing an extreme grief, an amount of grief and sadness and loss very suddenly, and somebody that you loved very deeply. Again, my late husband was a soulmate for me. He was not abusive, mean, unloving. I didn't hate him. We were in a good place, and it was unexpected. Okay, and for a while after that, I had said to myself, I didn't want to get married again. I didn't want to even fall in love that deeply with anybody again because of a few reasons. Number one, I didn't want to have to hurt that bad. I didn't want to have to hurt and be brought to my knees with that type of pain ever again. And the only way I could ever do that is to not fall so deeply in love. Okay? And so I actually made that decision and thought it was a reasonable decision for a long time. For many years. Many years. So you can imagine if you decide, between you and God, if you just say to yourself, okay, God, you know what? Since I have to be here on this earth and you keep waking me up every morning, even though I'm praying to see my late husband again and you're not answering that prayer, fine. Then I won't fall in love that deep. I will never fall in love that deep again because I cannot, this body can't withstand that type of pain again. So life does go on after you lose somebody, especially if you have children and you have a reason. Like you know you have to do what you need to do for them, right? And unfortunately, that decision though is like saying, I'm only, if I could have, on a scale of 1 to 10, if I could have a 10 being the greatest type of love, I'm on purpose going to only settle or only look for about a 5 or a 6 type of a love. So that way, when that person dies on me, okay, because here I am now experiencing loss at a young age, in my 30s, at a very young age, and saying, well, the next one's probably going to die on me again, and I don't want to hurt that bad, so I only want to experience a 5 or 6 type of love. I had a 10 once before. I don't want to get that. I don't want to get to that deep level of love again, ever again, because that hurt to lose that person, or they might die. So, and actually they will. We all know death and taxes is inevitable. We all know this. And I really know it because I experienced it. And 3 in 1 year. So, you can imagine the being 12 years removed from losing him, and even just saying that, I realize, that sounds crazy, right? It's like if you have the option to fall deeply in love with somebody, they're like, that's a 10. That would give you the happiness of a 10, but you choose to settle for a 5 or 6 on purpose so you won't miss them as much when they die. How ludicrous that sounds. It sounds like you're off your rocker, but it made sense to me at the time. Because I also felt like I never even wanted to attempt to replace that beautiful love that I had, because he was irreplaceable. And I would rather just meet him again on the other side, whatever that looked like. Okay? That is all part of grief. That is all part of grief. Grief stages, and depending on who you lose. It's obvious that if you lose a grandma, that you're not going around shopping for a new grandma when you go to Walmart, right? Or nobody else presents themselves in your life as a new grandma 9 times out of 10, right? And so it is a different grief experience losing a grandma or a grandpa, a brother or a sister, a child, than it is from even losing a spouse. Because especially if you are at a young age, or you still have life to live, okay? Or you're even halfway attractive, you're going to probably attract new suitors. And there's no way to speed up that grief process, because it's different for everybody. And imagine if it took as many years as you were with that person, and it took equally that many years for you to get over it. So if you're with that person for 15 years, and if it took you 15 years to get over them, so it's like saying, I'm going to go without love, or being touched, or going on dates, or I'm not even going to, whatever, for 15 years, because that's probably when I'm going to be over this person. Well, that doesn't make much sense either, right? Because that's not feasible if you were somebody like me who was widowed young. And there are young widows out there. I've met them. Not a lot, but I have met them. If you get the blessing of saying goodbye to your spouse, and you are up in age, and you don't have to live many years without that person, that is probably as good as it can get if you loved your spouse, if you love your spouse deeply, right? And so I'm sharing this because grief stages is different for everybody, and it will cause you to have, if you want to call or say, an awakening. For me, it was one of many, one of a couple. From what I've been told. But thankfully I already had a good relationship with my Heavenly Father, Jehovah God. And so I talked to him a lot, and I talked very real about this. And I said to him, fine, I need to find somebody, because, I have 2 boys and they need a father, and I can't stay single forever, but I don't want to hurt like this again. So I don't want to love as hard, because I can't go through this again. My heart physically cannot go through that type of loss again. And then, I did that, and then, quickly realized that was a decision made from a very unhealed version of myself, and a very unhealed place, right? And so I learned from that, that wasn't the answer, okay? That I wasn't living authentically myself, being with somebody who was only like, I was only in love with about a 5 or a 6. Because that wasn't working for me, being that I had already experienced a 10 type of love. 10. It wasn't actually, that was me moving from a place of hurt and pain. And not healed enough, right? And so, I learned from that. And I'm bringing this up because a lot of times people move from their pain and they don't realize that that's what they're doing at the time because they can't see it. It does sometimes take you moving through experiences to come out better or different, or to make a different decision, right? But I also have no problem talking about these things with anybody who needs it. Anybody who needs this type of real talk. This is why I do have some very real friends, close friends of mine, that when we do talk, they know that I'm very real. They know that I'm very loving. They know that I understand. And, they know that I can actually relate. I don't necessarily show and talk about all this stuff up front with people, right? Because it's usually not the time and place, especially if I'm doing makeup or something, right? But when people need to hear these types of things, it's important to understand that you're not alone when it comes to the grief process and when it comes to losing someone. When you lose somebody, it doesn't, a child or a spouse or anybody, you lose a piece of your heart, or you literally feel like you have a hole in your heart. And what I've come to realize is that that hole in your heart is a specific shape. Okay, so meaning, let's say, if you want to say like it's a heart, like a heart shape or whatever for that person, that only that person's energy, only that person could ever fill again. You cannot try to replace that hole in your heart with anything or anybody else, because it ain't gonna fit. It's a square. It's just like that ball that you give kids that have all those different holes in them, that they got to put the right shape, they got to fit the right shape in, right? It's just like that. And when you accept that your heart is now a different shape because of the hole in it, it's not that you're not as good or whatever. If anything, you are more experienced in something new. It's kind of like battle scars. Some people wear their battle scars as a badge of pride, right? Or the unhealed person will try to hide their battle scars. But as you heal, you start to learn and understand that, no, I actually grew from this experience. Or if you do the healing, if you go through the healing processes, if you allow yourself to move through the emotions, and however long that takes, and all the different things that can come along with that, you actually can grow from them, and you actually do get stronger because of the scar, or because of the hole, whatever. It's like you have learned from that. You learn how to move differently, right? I also learned that I also made the decision after that decision, many years later, going through, coming out of the grief a lot more actually, I decided, you know what, I'm actually like putting a what's the word I want to say? It's like I'm hindering, stopping, or not even allowing as much love as I could have in my life out of fear of losing another love of my life, potentially. So I'm actually like pushing away or stopping a certain amount of love or whatever from coming and filling my heart again, right? So it was a decision I had to make inside of myself. Was I going to be real and authentic and live, try to, and find somebody, or try to find somebody that I really loved, truly in my heart, that I could be with, and allow love completely 100% in my life again, or not. It was like, was I going to be afraid of the pain, or was I going to allow full, complete love? And after many years of not allowing it, or not wanting it, and being closed off, I realized that living that way, I actually wasn't living authentically to what I was used to, or what I even wanted. It didn't serve me. It wasn't good for me. So I made the decision to open up 100%. To look for the 10 type of love, okay? What I had experienced even once before with my first husband, and to not be afraid of losing that person, and moving through what I needed to move through, to understand that there will come a time and a place that everybody will experience grief of some sort, because death is a part of life on this planet, on this side of Armageddon, or whatever you want to say, whatever you believe in, right? But right now, currently, this is a part of our human experience, is life and death. And I decided that I wanted to live fully this experience, and be in that moment authentically. And I would rather love harder and be 100% in the experience of loving somebody and being in love, than to not. And one of the things that I had meditated on for a very long time, for many years, was my personal experience of when I went to the hospital and I had to see my late husband, who was in his 30s, lay on that deathbed in the hospital. And again, I was shocked by this, because he had had a sudden heart attack, and I didn't get to say goodbye. And so I was there for hours at the hospital. But I remember very distinctly, and this is what has stayed with me all these years, I'll never forget this fact. For me personally, what I was thinking that whole time that I was there, because I was there for hours, I remember looking at him, and I remember saying, or thinking to myself, and even to God, that there was no amount of negotiation, no amount of money. Literally, there was nobody. Not Jesus Christ is not here on earth right now. There was nobody that could change what I was looking at, which was my husband dead. They had worked on him for an hour, and it didn't work. They couldn't bring him back. And it was just time to say goodbye. It was, and people were coming. I had friends, family, I had people. Everybody, was starting to pile into the hospital and to try to comfort me and whatever. But all I kept thinking was, it didn't matter how much money I had in the bank. It couldn't bring him back. It didn't matter who walked into that room. It didn't matter if I, cried to my mother, to my dad, who could usually fix any problem I ever had. They couldn't fix this one. And I remember feeling helpless. And I also remember being so glad, so happy though, that I actually didn't have any regrets. I had no regrets. I had told him I loved him, that morning, the night before, and I had lived fully in the experience with him. And the only thing you're left with, especially because I didn't have life insurance, we didn't have the life insurance at the time, the only thing I was left with was the memories of me and him, and my boys. But what I carry in my heart was the memories, and most of them were good. But the experience and the feeling that I got, the warmth and the love that I felt with him, is what I was left with. And this is what I thought about, and what I literally, if you want to say, meditated on, ruminated on, or this is what caused my, at that time, I guess it would be a second awakening, spiritual awakening, if you want to say. But I continue to think about that for many years, to the point that I decided that, you know what, anybody that I love, or anybody that I get with in the future, I want it to be real and authentic. I want it to be a 10. I want it to be a 10 type of love. And I wanted to live that experience 100% all the way through and not have no regrets with, either myself or no matter who passed first or